Okay, this is video number 39, and in this video I'm going to talk, as it says, about getting people out of cults or multi-level marketing or similar type scammy type groups. And these two issues, patience and education, right? It's very easy to panic and react and do a lot of the mistakes that I mentioned in video 38. Don't panic. Don't panic. In the 1970s, there was a guy called Ted Patrick, and he was known as a deprogrammer. And the basic idea was find where the member is, bundle them into the back of a car or a van, whisk them off to some faraway place where they can't escape, and just sort of force feed them with all the bad information about the cult, doing that for their own good because they're brainwashed, right? Now, the success rate of deprogramming, it got some people out, but in some cases it made it a lot worse, right? And because we know more now than we did in the 1970s, deprogramming, exit counselling has matured, and deprogramming was illegal, is illegal in some nations, but the concepts that Ted Patrick brought to the table were really good, because yes, it really is like somebody's been programmed or indoctrinated with twisted scriptures in a love bombing environment, and suddenly they join the group because they love the group. The group is better than their life, kind of thing. So they choose the group, and of course the group pretends to be God, so they choose God over friends and family. You can get educated and understand all of that stuff, but if you react without even the basic knowledge of what a cult is or what the particular cult that you're up against is, you're going to make all the mistakes. Now, in some regards, you can come back from these mistakes, but often you're just pushing the person further into the cult, which isn't making them escape, it's making them run to the cult, especially if you get angry or shout or whatever, which is a perfectly natural reaction. If somebody's got conned, you might, oh, how bloody stupid are you? Are you an idiot? Why didn't you fall for this bloody scam? And yet there's so many scams that catch people out. It's not that people are stupid, it's that the scammers are very proficient and devious in what they do, because that's how they survive. Their existence is based upon conning people, and because the scammers themselves are so brainwashed, they don't think they have any other option. They don't believe in doing an honest day's work when they can just con people and get 10 times more money. There is an interesting fact. Most members in cults or multi-level marketing will leave because of what they see behind the scenes or what they learn. It's not like cult members are stupid. They're conned. I did in video number 35, just expanding on this idea that cults trap people in so many ways. Somebody could join a cult and, like what happened to me, I thought the group was the way to find a wife, have kids, live happily ever after. It was the solution to all my problems, and they're happy to tell you it will be, as long as you do what they say. Therein lies the trap. But most people will leave a cult, by their own choice. Now, whether that happens right away, you want it to happen right away, it might happen years and years later. Recently, there was somebody I knew in London ICOC, then they joined London ICC, and, you know, nice guy. But he only recently left a couple of years ago. He, like me, was in it for probably over 2 decades in his case, but he's left. There is the victory. But that victory was 20 years of brainwashing, and now he's free. So he's starting the journey of recovery. But the most important thing is that he's out. Yeah, that's the most important thing. Hopefully he doesn't go back, because sometimes people are so institutionalized and so brainwashed, they need help to realize that they're not the bad person for leaving the group of God, you know, kind of thing. And this brainwashing can happen in a corporate environment, a political environment, a religious environment, a business environment, multi-level marketing. Yeah. Now, getting educated about multi-level marketing. Usually in a multi-level marketing group, the vast majority, usually the high 90% of people, lose money. Now, if you thought, well, I'm just an average person joining this group, I don't know much about it, let me give it a go. Would you give it a go if you realised 97% of people lost money? I mean, hopefully you'd question, well, why do 97% of people lose money? You know, I got conned by a group called iMarkets Live, Chris Terry, ironically, about a year after I left the cult. So out of the frying pan, you know, into the fire kind of thing. But these devious groups, and they are devious groups, are also very attractive. You know, oh, look, there's lots of young people and they're all dressed smartly. They're all making money, I assume, and they're not. You know, they want to, but they don't. You know, their cult leaders will tell them, you know, you have to fake it to make it. If you want to be successful, you have to get yourself a smart suit, make yourself presentable, and talk positively. And they know it's like, that's the way to be successful. No, that's the way to make yourself attractive, to recruit more people. Very devious. Cults. You know, I've spoken so much about the indoctrination. But, you know, as I said, this video is getting people out of cults or MLM. What I want to really emphasize the point is, it's patience and it's education. You know, you don't have to get the member out of the cult this week. You know, you don't have to go in like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone, all guns blazing. You know, in fact, that's probably the worst thing you could do. You know, I mean, if you look at the history of groups like Jonestown or Waco or Heaven's Gate or other groups where it ended tragically, you know, it's like, was there anything anyone could do? You know, could you have done it differently? Of course, that's how we learn, you know. But it really, I really recommend people really understand the group that the person got recruited into, a friend and family member, and it takes research. And it's not like one website might give you all the answers or one book. You know, we're talking about a determined effort to understand the topics of cults. I recommend books like Combating Cult Mind Control by Stephen Hassan, his website, Rick Allen Ross, culteducation.com, good clue in the name of the website. Books, lots of books out there. And there's lots of newer people who have experienced newer cults, you know, and certain things change, certain things stay the same. And do you not think the cults also want to know how to keep members in the cults and how people get out the cults? They want to know how the exit counsellors do what they do. You know, I mean, when I think who's watching my video, hopefully it's people who want to get somebody out of a cult. It might be members in a cult questioning, or it might be cults. Oh, how does he do it then? How does he do it? How can we counteract his methods of getting people out of cults? And it is a constant battle. It is a constant battle. It's like war. You know, I mean, who'd have thought drones would change warfare? A drone, effectively, is a flying soldier that can see things thousands of miles away. In the 1960s, they were, you know, experimenting with remote viewing. Well, you don't really need it now, do you? You know, you've got a drone. You know where the enemy is. You can fly the drone. You know, so a lot of things become fairly pointless. I remember watching the $6 Million Man and the sort of remote viewing episode. Yeah, these days computing and spyware, you know, and all of that kind of stuff have been game changers as well. So some of the books like Robert J. Lifton, Thought Reform in Communist China, 1940s, some of it is classical truth. But times have changed. You know, you go to, dare we say it, a cult like China, there's cameras everywhere, you know, people have a social credit. It's all about control. It's all about control. Illegally imprisoned, tortured and killed, you know, in certain parts of the world, people who've been in drug gangs, they just put them in cages, you know, hundreds of people in a big cage, you know, no clothes sometimes. It's pretty savage, isn't it? But I mean, if that's what is acceptable in the normal world, just imagine how bad it gets inside cults. Yes, it does. You can have a preacher, you know, smiley faced on YouTube delivering sermons, behind the scenes, all kinds of horror that is worse than horror movies could be going on. You know, that's what you're up against. In the more extreme cases, certain cults are more mild. It's just about the money. Some slimy git salesman, you know, isn't a good salesman, becomes a cult leader, London ICC, you know. But it's not what you see online as how you should judge a group. You've got to talk to ex-members. If it's one person that says, oh, this group was bad, yeah, maybe you could question if one person and everybody else is saying it's good. But, you know, cults even tried to get channels deleted, you know, YouTube channels deleted, or they try and get reviews deleted on Google Maps or whatever. And seemingly because social media is so corrupt, social media will just take the money, you know, and even put adverts up for cults. You know, they don't give a shit. It's all about the money. So there you go. That is the way it is. That is the way it is. I mean, you could say the 1970s were better in many ways, but they weren't better in that they stopped cults, were they? You know, so cults have always been around. I can't imagine them stopping anytime soon, and they're very adaptive. You know, so and they got the money, so they can afford the lawyers, the private eyes, and the judges, and all of that. You know, it really is mission impossible. You know, with certain groups, because they're just so big and so bad, and they've been around for so long. You know, Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses kind of thing. But most Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons are probably nice people. But the higher up you go in the pyramid of power, yeah, the more devious and two-faced they become. So yeah, get educated.